Legends of the Dead is introducing something I know all Crusader Kings players secretly yearn for. Unbridled death, uncontrollable sickness, plagues that'll bring kingdoms to their knees. Empires will fall, but others will emerge changed. Legends will rise of those who safeguarded their people against all odds. Without beating around the bush, this is the most impactful expansion for the game yet. Its new mechanics turn the world on its head and offer unparalleled paths to greatness for the leaders of the world. The good times are better, the miserable ones are rampant. Chapter 3 is starting, and here's what you can expect. Legends of the Dead focuses around 3 primary features: plagues, legends, and legitimacy. Plagues are what you'd expect, unchecked illness that spreads around the world. They'll pop up here and there with varying symptoms, infectiousness, and severity. Much like the history books, plagues spread like wildfire in densely populated and unsanitary areas, and fresh battlefields are a hotbed for infections. You can adjust the frequency and severity of plague before you start a game, and for the sake of this video, I cranked the levels as far as they would go, just so they'd have the biggest impact possible. These infections will blanket your land and decimate your population. Characters in your court will become infected, vassals and their families will perish, and it'll wreak havoc on your family line. My advice: don't grow too attached to your children, as they will probably die of typhoid. The flip side is, this will give plenty of opportunities to check out the new funeral mechanic. So if you're excited for that, great for you, I guess. Plagues can shatter countries and decimate a nation's economy, but there are safeguards. Your court physician can take measures to stop the spread and can build infrastructure to make your peasants a bit less dirty and germ-ridden, though that won't help much against the game's new late-game crisis, the Black Death. Historically, it killed half of Europe, so be prepared for this to potentially be game-ending. If you can come out the other end though, your people, or whatever remains of them anyway, will surely be grateful. The challenges you face will put a strain on your legitimacy, that is, your right to rule. Keep messing up and being stupid, and your legitimacy will decrease. Vassals will grow frustrated and just overthrow you. They have certain expectations for a liege, and if you don't fulfill those, there will be hell to pay. But this works both ways. Accomplish great things and your legitimacy will increase, to the point where it was your God-given right to rule, and your vassals will get in line. This isn't just a domestic metric. It makes declaring war cheaper, increases opinions with other leaders, and foreign rulers will be waiting in the wings with their children, hoping you'll marry one of them. So how do you increase your legitimacy and make the whole world like you? Well, there's a few ways, but the big one is also new: legends. Every now and then, a ruler comes along who achieves great things, actions worthy of the history books. Maybe they did a notable deed for their family, maybe they conquered a powerful enemy, or created a new empire, or lived a most pious and virtuous life. You might try and peddle the tale of how you killed a dragon, and whether that's true or not doesn't really matter. As long as your people believe it, it's true. During your rule, you'll earn legend seeds. These are born from events and can blossom into far-reaching tales of greatness. As it gets a foothold, your vassals and subjects will further its spread. It'll spit out unexpected events. The Sicilian king may decide to discover the mythical land of, Finland, and lo and behold, they'll have heard of his deeds even there. These are expensive to maintain, but provide some huge benefits. To see how all these new factors play out and just how big the rewards are, let's take a look at one such tale coming into fruition: the legend of King Roger of Sicily. The legend of King Roger began with his father. In an attempt to generate a legend seed and start spinning tall tales far and wide, he decided he was going to be an avid hunter, felling mythical beasts across the land. He was an accomplished warrior and loved by his people, so this should be a sure thing. He died on his first hunt, mauled to death by a boar. His son was plopped on the throne, a 9-year-old hunchback who spent his childhood buried in books. The vassals weren't too pleased about this. So father killed while hunting, clueless child on the throne, and a mother regent coiling ever tighter around the scales of power. Wait a minute, haven't I heard this one before? Despite his physical limitations and almost dying to plague a few times, Roger was a smart cookie. He became best friends with the Pope and married well. The papacy started handing out claims, and being the good little Catholic he was, Roger snatched them up and spread his realm. His duchy spread across southern Italy and Sardinia, and he held enough land to found the Kingdom of Sicily. This is a legend seed. Roger had gone from a duke to a king, and he was able to start the legend of how he took the Hauteville family to new heights. As he started peddling the tales of his conquest, his vassals were swept up and began promoting it too. Events tied to your legend will pop up, allowing you to make choices here and there, influencing the retelling of your story. Your choices might give an effect on influenced lands or personal stat increases to your ruler. At certain milestones, your legend can be upgraded. This increases the effect it has on your kingdom, but also makes it costlier to maintain. It takes a lot of coin to hire all those minstrels and bards after all. As your fame grows, you'll notice its impact on the world around you. You might even get your own plague named after you. Look at that. Roger's boils. Would much rather catch that over the Wiener Plague, which sounds very unpleasant. Once your legend is sufficiently grand and storied, you can choose to complete it, cashing in on some juicy rewards, a big boost to your legitimacy, and access to special buildings with impressive effects. But these aren't the big things. See, when King Roger completed his legend, he received a legitimate casus belli against the entire Byzantine Empire. Not sure how or why, but I'm not one to look a gift horse in the mouth. He accepted his rewards graciously, turned around, and put Constantinople to the sword. So that's the kind of effect a legend can have, taking you from a duke to an emperor in a single ruler's lifetime. The deeds you can accomplish are lofty, and there's no backdoor trickery or skullduggery going on. Everyone goes along with it and supports you because you're just such a flippin' legend. So the highs are much greater in this expansion, but that's a double-edged sword, as the lows you reach are on a whole new level. Roger's great deeds left his empire in a state of calm as vassals bent the knee to this lofty figure. But despite being the most famous man in Europe, he was still but a mortal, and eventually he kicked the bucket. Enter Roger II, the storm after the calm. It doesn't take long following a legendary rule for you to see the whole thing come tumbling down. Before the lid had closed on his father's casket, the empire was in turmoil and fracturing. Roger II didn't have the legitimacy to retain his vassal support, so they all gave him the finger and rebelled. Every uprising that couldn't be quelled decreased his legitimacy even further, and soon his realm was shattered. He tried to regain legitimacy by conquering a neighbor. He marched his armies to their capital and somehow got captured and lost the war. Taking a leaf out of his father's playbook, Roger II started to peddle a story about how he killed a dragon. Nah, his people didn't buy it. They rebelled more. He died of a heart attack, and then things started to go really bad. When Roger III took over, strife was rampant. You couldn't go a week without an uprising, cry for independence, or a disillusion war. And what do all these bloody, needless battles result in? Plague. Tons and tons of plague. Up till now, there'd been a fair few outbreaks in the world, and you can track them in the fancy new plague interface. Most of them won't affect you, but it's nice to see how things are evolving on foreign soil. Here and there, you'll get an outbreak in close proximity. Now these are the ones to be wary of. They're pretty easy to spot. Just look for the pulsating bloody mess on the world map, or the counties bathed in barren dead land. You can take some preventative measures, and some reactive ones. Your physician might be able to increase resistance in your cities by some early precautionary measures, or he might just botch the whole thing with leeches and make the whole thing worse. That's doctors for you. You might take every approach at your disposal, seal up the capital and isolate yourself from your peers, but that won't stop the plague ravaging your land and your people. And this isn't a metric without weight. Characters will die. Your vassals and friends and foreign leaders will die. Your family, your heirs, even your ruler will die. Just as old Roger III found out when he tried to help a peasant with smallpox. He caught it. He died. Poor sod. His son was somehow even more unfortunate. Despite surviving till adulthood, which was a rarity in the country, his life was plagued by misfortune and, plague. Heirs and wives were dropping like flies, which obviously isn't ideal, but it is great for checking out the new funeral mechanics. With so many family members dying, stress can be a real killer. Fortunately, taking the time to bury your loved ones gives a bit of solace and provides a way for rulers to air their grief. You'll be presented several options during the service, some more pious than others, and like other events, you have a general focus. You might take the time to bond with a family member over the burial, or you could, seduce a local vassal while they lower your kid into the ground. If that's the type of ruler you are, I won't judge. Funerals also provide legitimacy, which can be crucial during a plague, as the last thing you want is your vassals rising up while your family members are perishing left and right. See, this is a vicious cycle. Legitimacy drops as you botch handling a plague. Vassals get mad and rise up. This leads to fighting. Fighting leads to more plague. More plague means more death, and more stress, and more botched handlings of your kingdom. And the cycle just keeps going. In the case of Roger IV, the kids just didn't stop dying. He couldn't make heirs fast enough, and that's also probably because his wives were also dead. Fortunately though, the plague did finally break. His remaining children pulled through and the future was looking bright. It was time to take back control and usher in a new era of prosperity for his country. He was assassinated just moments later. Say it in the comments with me. Poor old Roger IV. This situation, as well as the excellent reign of the original King Roger, sums up the expansion for me. Things can go wrong very quickly, and when they fall into that cycle, things go from bad to worse. Only something drastic can pull you out of that funk, but most times your rulers are locked into a tragic stage exit. On the other hand, when things go well, they can snowball something massive. Dukes can become emperors, vassals are loyal on principle, and the whole world will excitedly murmur your name. Does one good Roger outweigh 3 idiot Rogers? Honestly, I'm not sure if that's a fair trade-off. But ultimately, after years of bumbling tragic idiots, Queen Elvira took the throne, and like her ancestor, snowballed into a legendary reign, forming the Empire of Italia, making her family a thing of legend, rather than just a punchline. And that's why I really like Legends of the Dead. It's volatile. That's great from a role-playing perspective as things always feel unexpected, and I enjoyed it just as much on an empire management level. It's got weight on each layer, a balance earlier expansions haven't struck. It clicks in well with the other content. Both Tours and Royal Court feel like they stick out a bit and are very self-concerned, whereas the mechanics in play here fit neatly into the base game and also interact with those introduced in previous DLC. I feel like Paradox are stepping back and thinking about the direction of the game as a whole. All the features introduced will play well into the rest of the content announced. The legend aspect is a perfect fit with the upcoming unlanded gameplay, and the idea of playing as an adventurer and writing your tale as you hustle your way around the world sounds excellent. And when that time comes, I would love to cover more. Playing this has been a blast, and if you want to see more Crusader Kings content in the future, let me know down in the comments. Honestly, it's a great expansion, the best yet in my eyes. There's a lot of elements that are loud and bold and in your face, but also a lot of subtlety that means things interact in interesting ways. This is just the start of Chapter 3 for the game, and there's the much anticipated unlanded mechanics and the Empire scale rework on the horizon. This to me is Crusader Kings 3 hitting its stride. First few expansions didn't really ring true for me, but this is much more solid footing in a great direction. There will always be that discourse between which is better, CK2 or 3. A few more expansions like this, and I think the debate will finally be laid to rest as this evolves well beyond its predecessor.